Good evening and welcome to tonight's council meeting. I'd like to call the meeting to order. First thing I'm gonna ask for is agenda changes.
Mr. Mayor, staff have no changes to present this evening.
Okay, next I'll open up for public forum and ask if anybody's here wishing to address the council, step forward. Since all the chairs in the gallery are empty, I'm gonna go ahead and close public forum and move on and ask for the approval of the consent agenda.
Mr. Mayor, I'd make a motion to approve the consent agenda as submitted.
Second. We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Consent agenda stands as approved. We'll move on to unfinished business, and the first item is a distressed property at 126 East Third. We'll open that distressed property hearing now and look for Ethan for updates on that.
I don't really have any to share, and I believe some of the updates, Mr. Jantz will want to share later in the meeting on another agenda item, if I'm not mistaken, so.
Okay,
At this point, we're still holding, waiting on communication from the property owner, I guess is how we'd say that.
okay. So we'll close the distressed property hearing on 126 East Third and go ahead and open up a public hearing on this distressed property at 217 Main.
Right, and on that one, we still have heard nothing from the property owner. City Attorney Jantz did draft a draft resolution, which is in your packet, 2023-16, which just outlines what the city's taken so far in steps with the distressed property hearing on that property, noting that when we had it, the owner and no other parties did appear, and that further action was continued until tonight. This resolution does ask in section 2 that the owner of the structure either direct and arrange for a complete structural evaluation of the property or that they have it demolished. We did not fill in that blank. We're looking for your input there. And you can ask Brad, I think, on what might be considered a reasonable standard as far as for that to be done. But this resolution would basically mirror what we did with the townsman and asking the property owner at their expense to hire a structural engineer to assess the property or to just go ahead and demolish it if they feel that that is too onerous of a request. I will note on a side, we did reach out and renting fence to get around the property would cost us somewhere between $1,500 and $1,800, depending on whether we do a 12-month or a 24-month. Really, the big expense is them mobilizing and getting it there, so there's only a $300 difference whether we do it 1 or 2 years. Obviously, we hope this wouldn't take 2 years, but you all have been involved in this before and know that these are not the fastest proceedings.
Would it be of any benefit for us to have some panels on hand ourselves that we could prefabricate panels like what we could buy at Tractor Supply? Would those be adequate, or would it be beneficial maybe to construct our own fence panels so that we have them to put up when we need them? We don't have to rent.
I know we have some that we bought with 204. The big issue we run into is not, depending on the property, not having enough
Right.
on hand or how much you keep that's inadequate. I don't know, Pat, if you have any strong feelings.
Well, I guess it probably gonna come down to how often you think you're gonna do this.
Right.
I would like to,
Hopefully we'll be here a long time and we'll have need for them at some point in time over the years.
You know, then storage and keeping them from trees keeping them from being damaged in storage is gonna be the next challenge, so. Not saying it can't be done, but
Sure.
it's just,
Well, just something for consideration down the road.
probably gonna be better off to lease or rent them and then attach that cost to the property. I'm sure that can be done. So, as far as a date on this resolution, what's that?
What's reasonable there?
Yeah, I don't know. Brad, what are you thinking on this date on resolution 2023-16?
On average, usually what most of them do is 60 days. Little as 45. I've had them even lower than that at 30. But I usually recommend a little more than that for the obvious reason. Takes a little time to marshal all those kinds of activities and get everybody in place, so. And they can come to you after, within the 60, and if there's good cause shown and good effort having been made, you can extend that.
Okay.
So I would probably start with that.
Like December 11th or so.
Yeah, figure out when that's gonna fall on a council meeting.
That'd be a council meeting.
Does that work for everybody?
I think so, yeah.
I guess, Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve resolution number 2023-16, a resolution directing for demolition or structural evaluation by a licensed engineer of the property at 217 Main Street in Halstead, Kansas by December 11th, 2023.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to adopt resolution 2023-16. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Post same sign. That resolution stands as approved. Any other comments on this particular public hearing, council or Ethan? Then I'll close the public hearing on the distressed property at 217 Main, and we'll open a public hearing on a distressed property at 308 Chestnut.
Thank you. This one is going to mirror basically what we just did with 217 Main. I've had no further indication or communication from the property owner regarding the property. So again, a draft resolution at your request has been prepared, 2023-17. Again, notes a date to be established for structural evaluation or for demolition of the property. We'd probably recommend that you would handle that with the same date you assigned to 217 Main, just for consistency.
Mr. Mayor, if there's no further discussion, I make a motion to approve resolution number 2023-17, a resolution directing for demolition or structural evaluation by a licensed engineer of the property on 308 Chestnut Street, Halstead, Kansas, to be completed by December 11th, 2023.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to adopt resolution 2023-17. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. That resolution stands as approved. Anything else on 308 Chestnut?
At this time.
I'm gonna close the public hearing on 308 Chestnut and open up a public hearing on the distressed property at 603 Spruce Street.
Thank you. This one, council had asked us to try and get into contact with the mortgage company, and I will turn that over to Julie, as I believe she made the initial outreach to update. If we've heard anything back, I know she had kind of a process to get directed to someone that potentially could help us.
Yeah, I reached out to the mortgage company, and what I found out when they responded to me is that they actually are not tied to the property themselves. They are a trustee for another company, which was very difficult to try and reach out to anybody there unless you have an account number or something you can't even get through. So the gentleman that I was working with has not responded to me today. I don't know if he's off with Columbus Day, but he is willing to try and work with me and get me in contact with somebody from, it's called AHP, and they are actually the ones that paid the taxes in 2018, 19, and 2021. So
Well, you're closer, son of a gun.
I'm getting somewhere, but it's just,
Thank you.
it's hard to, when you're dealing with a company out of New York City. It's really hard to
New
get to
York
an actual
City.
person. Yeah. So I will keep working on that and plugging away and seeing what I can
Dealing with
find out.
anything out of New York is difficult.
Yeah,
Well, thank you, Julie.
you're welcome.
So, yeah, on that one, we obviously have no communication, not a lot of good leads as far as who we need to be dealing with. I mean, we can continue to chase that down if the council just wants to pin this to the next meeting and see if we have any update from that, email inbox that we were directed to send notification to. And we can, at the staff level, discuss with Brad what options we have too, if we're just absolutely getting nowhere with somebody to even request to structurally evaluate the property or otherwise take action on it.
So if we can't find anybody, what do we do? Can we-
Basically, we'll just proceed ahead.
Okay,
In that instance, as long as we've made the appropriate effort statutorily for notification, it moves on. The property owner has some duty to maintain contact on their own property, so.
okay.
We want a motion to table this, or?
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, make a motion to table the continuation of 603 Spruce till next meeting.
Second,
Have a motion and a second to table the distressed property hearing for 603 Spruce to the next meeting. All in favor, say aye.
aye.
Pose same sign. And with that, we'll close the current public hearing on 603 Spruce Street and move on our agenda. Well, that's gonna take us to new business. The first item under new business is soliciting, canvassing, and peddling regulations. Ethan will bring us up to par there.
Yeah, this was, as noted in the agenda memo, brought forward after a discussion with Councilmember Homewood. We did include in the packet our current regulations and then the most recent ordinance passed regarding solicitation, canvassing, and peddling, and I will gladly turn it over to the body to have the discussions.
So a couple times a year, strangers from out of town come and at the crosswalk by the school, they hand out various things to kids. The school can't do anything about it. My concern is that we're conditioning our kids to take things from strangers. They shouldn't be, no one should be handing our kids anything without parents' consent. They've like this last time, they funnel them to where the kid has to sneak by them on the sidewalk or on the crosswalk. It's not safe. I was just seeing if there's anything legally we can do to, not let strangers hand things to our kids.
Immediately, for me, what comes to mind is, I believe this is a religious organization, and there's a constitutional First Amendment rights. However, I draw the line at approaching minors. I would think there would be some consideration to be given to that aspect of it.
Yeah, I was thinking that also. Wouldn't there be a limit on children?
In the current state of our court and culture, really not. The weight of approaching a minor versus religious freedoms is the pendulum is swung more toward religious freedom. What you can do, if it relates to somehow they're influencing where they go and how they get there, and it in some way impacts their safety, takes them outside of a crosswalk, makes them walk around them, makes you step off a curb into a traffic area, anything like that. Or you become sufficiently aggressive that it's harassing, then yeah, we can do something about that. Just the simple act, though, of standing there and holding something out without necessarily pursuing the child, and again, that's an element of fact, how aggressive they are with it. Can they do that? Yes, they can. Can they go overboard with that? Absolutely. That becomes kind of a judgment call on our part, case by case. If you see the pattern of conduct such that they somehow create a kind of a line that you have to go through to get there, and these kids feel inherently coerced, then that's a problem. But if they're just handing something and the child is, free to walk on by and not take it, they can do that.
So the parents have no rights. So someone can basically just give my kid anything.
Yeah, no, to the extent that if the parent sees it and says, I don't want you approaching my child, you can do that. So again, that's where the case-by-case element of that
Yeah,
comes
but
in.
the parents aren't there.
I understand. It's the same reason that the school district will tell you, we can't stop them in a public environment. We really can't either. other than if it's safety, health and welfare, and that does not include their exercise of their First Amendment right to free speech. I'd love to tell you something more you can do with that. There isn't on just that pure issue. There is on how they do it. If they somehow are impeding their progress, or it's becoming aggressively coercive in terms of what they're doing, then yeah, we can shut that down and say people need to step back. If you've got something that you want to give and you want to stand here with it in your hand and even, hold it up or hold it out, you can do that. But if you try to pursue the child and, impair their progress, make them feel sufficiently threatened that they have to step around or over you to get somewhere, they can't do that.
Well, I watched one kid, he leaned back to grab it, about fell off his bike. Another kid almost ran another kid over on riding his bike because he was taking it. And then the others are just funneled so close to that curb that's not safe either.
I think those are things you can address. Yeah,
Who would I address those with?
with the police department. If they're observing anything like that, that's what I'm describing, is if it somehow is creating an obstruction or some kind of a change of, you're feeling like the kid has no choice but to change and alter their path. They're being altered in such a way that it creates danger of hitting others or, veering into traffic or dropping off a curb. Absolutely. We can do that.
Brad, I get what you're saying about the courts have tended to swing more towards religion. At what point does the parents' discretion about what religious teachings that they hold and what they teach their kids come into play, and how does that have any type of impact on this?
It can. It's so complex that it's hard to answer that with just a simple yes or no or maybe. In those instances, if you've got someone standing there and you have, you're trying to raise your children in what you consider to be an appropriate and strong religious environment, and you have somebody standing there who is a devil worshiper and decides they want to give them the other side of the story. I have seen that litigated, for years. And you do have the ability in those instances to post something that, that indicates if there's an objection on the part of a parent. But it's so difficult to do because, like, if you're on a street corner in a public environment, they have a right to be there. They're handing out these materials, and unless they're inciting riots or in some way becoming so contra to the public peace, they can do it. And it's offensive, but if you tell the AFL-CIO that, they're like, not to them. It's the answer you'll get. And that's part of our problem with, if we're going to call it a problem, freedom of speech. You can say what you want within certain parameters, and it may be terribly offensive to someone else, but it's not going to matter.
Okay. Thanks.
All right, any more questions on that subject? Let's move on to the Imagine IT Security Shield proposal. That would be you, Ethan. I'm quite sure this is our spamware virus protection and everything for the city.
Yeah, so this would actually be enhancements over kind of our current, we have some certain IT security in place by virtue of our master services agreement. The Security Shield proposal falls more in line and was put together by Imagine IT kind of in response to the growing checklist, if you will, that we're having to start to go through for like cyber liability coverage, ensuring things. Some of these we've already instituted, like multi-factor authentication. We already do, security awareness training, things of that nature with our staff. But as far as them going in and being able to isolate machines on our network immediately, actually proactively monitoring us during business hours, you could see from the proposal, they actually have two and a half different levels, if you will. We're suggesting the essentials, which should meet all of our compliance needs for our liability insurance, and then also helps us with HIPAA and, sorry, the other acronym escapes me, basically our credit card, taking like payments online, that kind of compliance reporting, keeps us there. We did budget, as we knew this was kind of coming down the pike to get this coverage, and we know that we're gonna be asked to be able to prove up some of this stuff if we want to continue to or have reasonable rates, and or in the event that there is a data breach, be covered in some way, shape, or form. You know, I mean, the realities unfortunately are that it's not a question of if, it's a question of when everything gets hit. I just at the league conference sat through the cybersecurity MTI, and I mean, there's questions even about, you know, the long-term viability of cybersecurity because of how much ransomware attacks have been happening, and the insurance industry grossly underestimating the payout needs and things of that. So this offers us better protection. We did budget for it. The big upfront cost is the deployment labor. That's a standard fee. Visiting with Imagine, that's what they basically come around to. Covers the staff time to turn all this stuff on the back channels on, as far as our server protections, port protections. Institute pays for, you know, us to be in those monitoring services. So not a great thing. You know, I'd love it if we didn't have to spend this extra on it, but I do believe it's money well spent in making sure that we're as secure as possible with our information technology.
And this will be bring our annual total expenditure for this line item to what?
That I would have to get you. It raises, the cost basically $605 a month, so adds roughly another $3,600 a year onto that, and part of that's based on how many licenses we have, you know, for Office 365, and then to the general. But I can get those numbers.
Well, that's okay, that's fine.
How close are we to getting our fiber runs lit up?
That I don't know. I reached out to Ideatech last week, but I haven't heard anything back, so I'll reach out again.
Just curious.
Imagine's done their part, like we're ready to go as far as the hardware that Imagine can control, and right now we're waiting on Ideatech.
They've been in and out of here the last week. They've been at the library and here.
Okay.
Working.
Yeah, when they was over at the shop, Friday, they said basically their part was done at the shop. And it sounded like they needed to come up here in the fire station for part of this week, and then they was gonna do their testing, so.
We're pretty close.
So we're
Yes, they're
close.
close.
Good.
Good, good.
Good.
Well, with that, Mr. Mayor, if there's no other questions or discussion, I'd make a motion to approve and authorize city manager to sign the Security Shield Essentials quote with Imagine IT.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve the Security Shield proposal from Imagine IT. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. That passes. Next up, we have some street closure resolutions. I believe it's resolution 2023-18 and -19.
Yeah, these are just recommended. Talking with City Attorney Jantz to just enshrine, formalize what you guys have already basically approved in previous meetings. So the resolutions just kind of formally put those times and the areas closed. We did combine because it's on the same day, and we don't see that we're gonna open the road temporarily for that 1 hour window between the events. The Brick Street closure and the Brick Street after hours closure is on the same resolution.
And just for clarification, what I was telling Ethan is, I don't know that you necessarily have to do these, although I strongly recommend you always do. The reason being, we've formalized it, a resolution does more certainly than even our minutes reflect. Less than an ordinance, but for purposes of street closures, it's the appropriate format. We do that in the event the officers have to enforce. If there's a problem and someone gets in the middle of that closed area and hits someone, or if they just violate the law by going around the barricades or that sort of thing, it provides more efficacy for purposes of a citation that we write than if we just put it in the minutes and someone argues that, well, yeah, technically I should see that, but I didn't. The resolution is just formalizes what we've already done, puts it out there, everyone's charged with the duty to know that it's there, even though they don't read those either.
So you're generating work for the newspaper.
Yeah. Actually, though, in these, we're not necessarily publishing. What we're doing is just putting it in our, in our code, our books, for purposes of that. And since we're the ones who regulate the street and byway laws, this gives us a little bit more in the way of power to do that.
Well, if there's no further discussion, Mr. Mayor, make a motion to approve a resolution number 2023-18, a resolution authorizing the temporary closure of Main Street for the K's fifth quarter event.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to adopt resolution 2023-18. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. That resolution passes.
And a motion to approve resolution number 2023-19, a resolution authorizing the temporary closure of Main Street for the Brick Streets Arts and Crafts Festival and Halstead Community Foundation Brick Street After Hours event.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to adopt resolution 2023-19. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. And that resolution is adopted. Now, the next fun item on the agenda is we need to set a work session, council. Ethan, what kind of timeline are you needing on that one?
We are looking for either late October, like the last week of October, which would be the week of the 30th, or early November before we start getting in the holidays. I believe one of the items, the developers would like to come in and discuss some, ideas, future thoughts on as they continue. And I know from us now that you all have been able to kind of see the 10th Street or the Main Street extension and how that affects, we need to talk more in earnest about what we want to do with like the city-owned house there on the west side of 10th and Main, so that is taken care of, and then just some general capital projects. So gives us some direction over the winter months to make sure we're teeing up projects to hopefully get things started in the spring.
If we can stay off Wednesday nights, that would be appreciated.
Well, the further into the 1st of November, like the first full week would be probably best for me. I'm gonna be coming off another eye surgery, so the first full week of November would be probably best for me.
That's fine.
Is that gonna be quick enough for what you wanna do, Ethan?
Yeah.
So you're talking the week of November 6th?
Yes, sir.
So November 9th?
Yeah, so 6th through the 9th, 10th.
Yeah. That's fine.
What day you come up with?
November 9th,
9th,
is that
okay.
Thursday?
What time?
Time?
6:30?
Okay.
7?
6:30 is good.
Okay.
Need a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I move that the city council set a work session for Thursday, November 9th, 2023, to commence at 6:30 in the city council chambers.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to have a council work session November 9th at 6:30 PM. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That passes. That is set. Julie, would you please email us reminders? That concludes our new business portion of our agenda. We do have a couple of executive sessions this evening, and I would entertain the motion for the first one now.
Mr. Mayor, I move that the Halstead City Council recess into executive session to discuss pending litigation pursuant to the consultation with an attorney on matters that be deemed privileged in the attorney-client relationship, exception KSA 754319B2, and ask that in addition to the governing body, the following persons join the governing body in executive session: the city manager and city attorney. The open meeting and governing body to reconvene in the city council chambers at 7:45 PM.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to enter into executive session. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We are in executive session, council. We'll move to the back room. We are back from our executive session. Is there any action to be taken as a result of? Hearing nothing from the council, I would ask for the motion for the next executive session.
Mr. Mayor, I move that the Halstead City Council recess into executive session to discuss potential purchase of real estate adjacent to the corporate city limits pursuant to the preliminary discussions relating to the acquisition of real property, except in KSA 754319B6, and ask that in addition to the governing body, the following persons join the governing body in executive session: the city manager and city attorney. The open meeting and governing body to reconvene in the city council chambers at 8:15 PM.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to enter back into executive session. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We will be moving back to the back, council. We are back from our executive session. Is there any action as a result of? Hearing nothing from the council, we'll move on our agenda. And the next section is a report section, and first item is governing body comments. I'll start with you tonight, Brody.
I have nothing tonight.
Denise?
I'm excited for the weekend in the brick streets, and wish to extend a happy birthday to our council president, George Joyce. Hope you got some tamales and some tortillas today.
Not today, thank you.
Darn.
George?
No, I have nothing. And, I do say, I'm sorry that I'm gonna miss this coming up weekend. I'm gonna be out of town. And it just seems like every time there's something big going on in town, I'm out of town, so everybody else have a good time.
Josh?
Nope.
Well, I had some visitors in from western Kansas that were some of my wife's family. We went and checked out the barn sale, and it looked like it was a pretty successful event. And hopefully they'll do it here again next year. And this weekend is our Brick Streets Arts and Crafts Fair, and that's gonna be fun. And afterwards is the Halstead Community Foundation's Brick Street After Hours. And hope everybody takes some time to come out and see the vendors at that. And I'll be very busy at that event. That's about all I have, so I'm gonna turn it over to you to wrap us up, Ethan, with your manager report.
Thank you. Just wanted to pass on, we did turn in both KDOT cost share applications and then the Pathways grant applications, so hopefully we'll hear on those. You did have some financial reports in front of you this evening. We are not hard closed yet with the treasurer, so that's why we delayed the financial report, but you can kind of see the preliminary information there. Just wanted to note that Deputy Clerk Washbaugh did attend training at the Kansas Association of Public Information Officers Conference on behalf of the city, and recognize the police department. Deputy Chief Stovall and Chief Orem made presentations to all 4 of the Little Dragon preschool classes, and then Chief Orem helped with the Reality U program for the middle school and the high school. Also want to recognize that we have some ongoing rec initiatives for the public if they're not aware of, including pickleball at the high school, middle school north gym on Sunday nights at 6:30. And then they are planning to do a basketball open gym on Sunday nights as well, and that will begin in November. And then Grant's also been working with a couple of individuals that are trying to do like a monthly horseshoe tournament there in Riverside Park. They did hold one in September and hoping to hold one in October, so just some fun events there. We did get good feedback from the barn sale. Unfortunately, it sounds like some of their signs got taken off Highway 50. I'm sure that was probably a KDOT decision. But overall, the comments we saw via social media, and some of the people that went there said that a lot of the out-of-town were very complimentary of the park, and Riverside Park as a location for the barn sale. So I just want to thank Pat and Grant, because I know they both spent a lot of time with their departments, making sure that Riverside Park presented its best foot forward for that event. We did pay final invoices on the 9th and Walnut reconstruction project. Right now, we're about $25,000 under the total authorized budget for that project. We do have some final engineering and inspection costs that will most likely come through, but we are under budget, so that's nice. Preliminary final walkthrough of the Main Street extension in Cedar Meadows happened just this past week. So the major work there has been completed. There will be some handrails that will be installed along the slough crossing in the near future. And then Votes Park is working on the punch list that was developed last week. Also met with the KMIT Association Health Plan. I'm very pleased. It's our second year. We are looking at a discount in our health insurance rates going into 2024. So it's a good year for the association, and this is what we hopefully would see. That doesn't mean every year will be this way, but we'll take it this year. We have finalized basically all the seed grant reporting, and it was in the bills and payroll this evening, I believe, of those final distributions going out to our funding partners there. So that kind of wraps up the seed grants. They have announced another round, so I've been in discussion with some of my colleagues from the other municipalities about looking at cost sharing that again amongst the municipalities for various projects. And then also spoke with the Department of Commerce regarding our Base 2.0 grant and what we saw based on our RFP responses. So I'm working on getting the paperwork filed there so we can hopefully enter into a direct contract to try and get that spec building built within the budget that we have assigned. So
Did you say you did reach out to that other company?
I have not yet. I
Okay.
need to. And those are the main things. I did email you all out the statistic report too as well. So that is in your email inboxes if you want to read that at your leisure. And other than that, had a good time at the league conference. It was a long weekend, but always good material, so.
All right, council, anybody have any questions for Ethan? Anybody else have anything else they'd like to add this evening? Well, in that case, I would entertain a motion for adjournment.
So move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for adjournment. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. We are adjourned. Thank you, council.